Welcome back to the Joust About Careers podcast, where you can learn about careers from the people who are actually doing the work every day. I'm your host, Brian Brott, and this week's highlights feature Jae Sutherland, a 2004 Van Buren graduate who is an area engineer for the U.S. Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources Conservation Service. The highlights focus on what Jae does as a civil engineer, the role internships played in her career journey, the tools civil engineers use, and much more. If you want to learn more about Jae's career journey, you can always watch or listen to her full interview, and if you find this podcast useful, please share it with someone else who could benefit from it. Enjoy the highlights, and I'll see you back here next week for a brand new episode.
I'm a managing civil engineer, which means I supervise a staff of 3 other engineers and 3 civil engineering technicians. So my day-to-day is a lot of troubleshooting, answering questions that go above the level of my current civil engineers. Um, I probably spend half my time on the phone right now,
Okay.
troubleshooting for different projects or questions about NRCS. My civil engineers, which is what I used to be, they spend a lot, probably 50% of their time out in the field actually doing construction work and then doing actual design work. So designing, well, in our case in Wisconsin, a lot of the projects that we work on are manure storages. And so a lot of work with concrete, earthwork, heavy machinery, building structures, things like that. So they do a lot of construction inspection for those types of things and then design of those actual things. Um, it's never the same every day, which is nice.
Right,
So
right.
something is always different and changing. And it's really nice because we get to see projects go from conception of a landowner coming into our office and being like, hey, how can you guys help me with this? To the actual installation of the project on the ground and completely done. Not all civil engineers can say that they get to see things from start to finish. A lot of them get very specific in their job duties, and we get to see everything from start to finish. And that's probably one of our favorite things about working for the NRCS. So the internships I had in college consisted of, like I said, I was a site engineer for uh, hazardous um, hazardous materials cleanup company. So I took internships. I was in Florida. I actually had one here in Wisconsin. Um, I did some part-time work while I was still in Ohio. And a lot of that was working with heavy machinery, heavy equipment, construction, concrete, a lot of those things. And I was outside almost the entire time. So that really helped push me to know that I wanted something that would allow me to be outside, do more construction, um, and manage really an overall job site. Um, I also had a internship with the Uniform Public Health in Oklahoma, and that was kind of my first foray into government, working for the government for a summer. Um, That one was a little more low key. I didn't get to go outside quite as much, but we did do construction. We installed water systems on tribal land, and so that was interesting construction. The crew that I worked with in that case did a lot of the construction themselves instead of farming it out, hiring an outside firm to do the work. So that was nice too, to actually be part of that design and installation process. So that was also nice to be part of the design process, and that was my first time being more involved in that side of things versus just um, seeing the construction side of a project somebody else had designed. So when I graduated with my master's, the company I was working for had downsized, the environmental company, and the market had crashed that year as well. So I'd had a really hard time trying to find a new job. Um, so I went on USA Jobs is the government's hiring board. So I went on there and basically looked for anything that had engineering in its title. Um, and civil engineering technician is one of those careers that you don't have to have an engineering degree to get in, but it looks nice on their side. And so I applied for a job in Walton, New York, which Walton, New York is it's it has a lot of benefits. So it's part of the New York City watershed, which means that all the water that falls in that area is what serves the city of New York, and it's the drinking water. So in New York, instead of building a multi-billion-dollar water treatment facility, they funneled the money into the watershed north of there. So everything north of New York City in that watershed is 100% funded to fix resource concerns. So the workload in that area is very, very high. So what that meant for me is I was never not busy. So I started out there as a green engineer. I had some construction experience, but I stepped into a role where most of our offices, so we have an office in every county, has like 3 or 4 people. This office had a dozen technicians, a dozen planners, like beyond the workload of just about anywhere else I've ever worked. So as a training ground, it was awesome. I got to learn everything, touch everything, start everything from scratch all the way to the end. Wonderful learning experience. Great way to start my career. So I did that for about a year and a half before a job opening in Binghamton, New York. So still with the government. So I moved from Walton to Binghamton. So I moved up there and I became a field engineer. That was also a huge learning experience. I went from having a dozen different technician types to bounce ideas off to mostly just me and one other person. Um, so I really learned how to make decisions, stand on my own, accept any decisions that I made, fix things that I messed up and try it again. I really enjoyed working there, and that was a great experience. But after about 5 years, I was ready for something more, um, more challenge. I had taken some, they're called details or temporary promotions, which means that with the government, when a position is vacant until it can gets filled, somebody can step into that role for a short period of time and kind of like try the job out. And so I took a temporary promotion as what's called an area engineer, which means it's the manager of the engineering staff in an area. It's a software system that's globally based and you input different data sources to it. So God, any kind of data you could think of. I use it a lot for mapping. And so it has all the roads, contours of uh, Earth's contours, so you get mapping of elevations. Um, you can do census data. You can do all sorts of things. Anytime you probably see a map anywhere, probably GIS based.
Okay.
There's just so many things you can do with that software. I highly encourage students to, if you can't do both AutoCAD and GIS, they're both computer integrated systems. So once you learn one, it's pretty easy to translate some of that knowledge into the other software. So I encourage students to at least get familiar with what the programs are. Um, I did take college courses in both of those platforms, but I'm pretty sure a lot of high schools, like Mr. Daniels is doing a computer software program. Any students that are taking post-secondary classes can take them. I know the University of Findlay does teach a GIS course because that's where I took my first GIS course.
Thank you for making the Joust About Careers podcast part of your day. I hope you learned valuable information from this career story, and to be sure you don't miss upcoming episodes, please click subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform so you'll know when the next episode is released. Thank you for spending a portion of your day with me, and as always, come back next week to learn even more just about careers.